this is Neil, and I'm partnering with the great HPC Today to bring you the Surfactant Insights Podcast. As my listeners know, the surfactant industry is built on two pillars today: petrochemical, originating in oil and gas, and oleochemical, mainly the palm plantation with a little bit of coconut. The market for detergent range alcohols, particularly 12-14 oleo-based products, is beset today with a structural disconnect between expanding downstream production capacity and a constrained, increasingly volatile feedstock supply of lauric oils, particularly palm kernel oil, PKO. As you know, these alcohols are key intermediates for the production of ethoxylates and ether sulfates used in home and personal care products, in big consumer brands, as well as in numerous industrial products. Now, as you again probably know, PKO is a byproduct of palm oil production, accounting for approximately 10% of total oil output from palm plantations. PKO global supply is around 9.5 million metric tons, with approximately 4 to 4.2 million tons per year directed toward surfactant manufacture. Coconut oil production is lower at around 3.7 million metric tons, with maybe 1 million tons or so used for surfactants. Supply growth for these oils has essentially hit a plateau. In Indonesia, which accounts for 60% of global palm oil output, and Malaysia, about 24%, yields are either stagnant or declining. Key factors include aging trees, labor shortages, and the spread of diseases such as Ganoderma. Furthermore, the kernel recovery rate, that's the percentage of PKO extracted from the fruit, has declined in Malaysia from 5.9% in 1990 to about 4.6% today. This is because of the selection of seed varieties designed to maximize crude palm oil production at the expense of palm kernel size. Now, in Indonesia, policy has shifted toward domestic value-add processing. By utilizing export taxes on palm oil and PKO, the Indonesian government has incentivized local oleochemical production, including biodiesel. As a result, the share of Indonesian PKO available for the external traded market has declined from 70% in 2010 to around 30% in 2024. This is a big deal and reduces the feedstock available to alcohol producers in other regions. Additionally, in Indonesia, the Reuters headline from late last year says it all. Fear grips Indonesian palm oil industry as military seizes plantations. It's not a small matter. Apparently, around 3.7 million hectares of plantations, which is about 22% of Indonesian total acreage, have been seized by the Indonesian government with the aid of the military. And nearly half of that acreage has been transferred to a new state-owned firm, Agrinas Palmas Nusantara. According to Reuters, that puts this new firm into a position as the largest palm oil company in the world by land size. Needless to say, there's consternation all round. The justification for the seizures revolves around illegal operations on forest land and allegations of corruption. However, it looks like many big names are under the microscope by the government, including Wilmar, SD Guthrie, Sinarmas, Musimas, and many others. In an already tight market for palm oil and palm kernel oil, there's concern that yields will further drop in the face of these nationalization efforts. However, despite all the current and expected constraints in feedstock, there's been significant recent investment in oleo alcohol production capacity. Since 2023, approximately 1 million tons of new capacity has been added, and global capacity is projected to reach around 5.5 million metric tons per annum in the next few years. Much of this expansion is concentrated in, as you might expect, Indonesia and Malaysia. This is creating a peculiar state of overcapacity where downstream processing units are competing for a limited pool of lauric oils. There's genuine concern now that many of these oleo plants, especially those not integrated into palm plantation companies, will be unable to obtain the necessary feedstock to operate consistently. The price of lauric feedstocks, as you might imagine, has experienced significant volatility recently. In mid-25, crude coconut oil prices moved into the $2,000 to $3,000 per ton range, and PKO followed a similar trend, trading at premiums of more than 2 standard deviations above the historical mean relative to crude palm oil. In addition, regulatory pressures are also increasing. The infamous EUDR, that's European Union Deforestation Regulation, requires strict geolocation and chain of custody data for palm-derived products. This adds compliance costs and limits market access for non-certified suppliers. At the same time, the oils market faces competition from the energy sector. Sustainable aviation fuel and renewable diesel mandates are diverting vegetable oils and waste fats away from chemical value chains. So, petrochemical alcohols are, of course, the main alternative to oleo-lauric-based alcohols. Capacity for these petrochemical alcohols is a little over 1 million tons per year, and the major players include Sasol and Shell. Today, they have a lower production cost base than the oleo alcohols, but the barrier to entry is quite high due to the capital expenditures required for integrated upstream petrochemical facilities. In home care applications in particular, petrochemical and oleo alcohols are often used interchangeably with some minor reformulation in the finished product. In summary, the C12-14 oleo-based alcohol market is suffering under a perfect storm, currently defined by a surplus of conversion capacity and a tightening volatile supply of primary lauric feedstocks driven by biological limits, shifting national trade and social policies, and increasing competition from the biofuel sector. It's going to be an interesting next few years with opportunities for potential new technology and products to enter the surfactant supply chain. Well, I hope you found this useful. And thanks again, as always, for listening.